Have you ever heard of ghost islands? Just hearing the name makes your imagination run wild, doesn't it? Mysterious lands shrouded in mist, guarding ancient secrets and treasures capable of changing lives. Places that seem straight out of a legend, but which may once have been real. These islands appear on ancient maps and then disappear without explanation, leaving behind only stories full of mystery. Some promise advanced civilizations, others speak of secrets of eternal life or riches that anyone would dream of finding. But did these lands really exist, or were they just inventions created by the fears and hopes of navigators venturing into the unknown? Perhaps they were real and somehow ended up swallowed up by the ocean or destroyed by forces we can barely imagine. Today, Bello Mundo takes you to explore some of the most fascinating and mysterious ghost islands and lost lands in history. Secrets, legends, and enigmas await you. Are you ready to unravel these mysteries? Number 1. High Brazil. Opening our list, let's talk about the mysterious High Brazil. Despite its name, it has nothing to do with the Brazil we know. This legendary island supposedly lay off the coast of Ireland, always shrouded in mists so thick they seemed magical. It first appeared on a map in around 1325, described as a small rock lost in the ocean. But since then, no one has been able to prove where it really was. Expeditions came and went with vague stories, and the exact location of the island became a mystery that intrigues to this day. Legends say that High Brazil only appears every 7 years, or when the fog dissipates in an almost supernatural way. Sailors claim to have come close, but were prevented by an unexpected fog. Others swear they have set foot on the island and returned with tales of castles and banquets. One of the most famous accounts comes from Captain John Nisbet, who is said to have run aground there. He told of an old man who welcomed his crew with plentiful food and stories about the island's origins. At the end of the 15th century, several expeditions set out from Bristol in search of High Brazil, believing that it held riches or could be a strategic point. Even John Cabot, the famous explorer, tried to find it before reaching North America. But, like so many others, he returned empty-handed. Over time, High Brazil disappeared from the maps. By 1865, it was no longer recorded, and after that, it became nothing more than a legend. Was this island just a figment of the imagination? Or is it hidden away, waiting for the right moment to reappear? It's a mystery that continues to fascinate the world. Number 2. Gamand. Leaving the misty waters of Ireland, we set sail for the North Pacific, where ancient maps marked a land called Gamand. This island was said to lie to the east of Japan and was filled with unimaginable riches, with gold and silver in abundance. It didn't take long for the rumors to ignite the imagination of sailors who dreamed of returning from these expeditions as living legends. The name Gamand, although mysterious, was associated by some with Vasco da Gama, the famous Portuguese explorer. Although this theory has no historical basis, the association further fueled the fascination with the island, which seemed to be a veritable paradise waiting to be found. Several maps have recorded the supposed location of this island, but no one has ever returned with concrete proof of its existence. Worse still, many expeditions ended in tragedy, with ships disappearing or returning with only confusing and disheartening stories. With the advance of cartography, it became clear that it was just another of the so-called ghost islands. Gradually, it was erased from maps and relegated to the world of legends. Still, amid conspiracy theories and stories told by enthusiasts, the idea that some unknown corner of the Pacific hides the secrets of Gamand lives on. After all, who doesn't like to dream about lost treasure? Number 3. The mysterious land of Sakov. If you like stories with mysterious disappearances and freezing landscapes, the enigmatic land of Sakov is a must. This supposed landmass was reported in 1810 by Yakov Sakov, a Russian fur trader who claimed to have spotted a huge expanse north of the New Siberian Islands in the Arctic. His discovery attracted explorers willing to brave the bitter cold to map what appeared to be a new land. But the mystery only grew. Expeditions sent to confirm Sakov's existence came back with disturbing stories, including the disappearance of part of a crew. Decades passed and no one was able to prove that this lost land really existed. Was it just a giant slab of drifting ice, a treacherous mirage, or the famous phenomenon known as Fata Morgana, which turns blocks of ice into illusory mountains on the horizon? For scientists, the answer lies in the last option. The polar regions are known for these optical illusions, where cold and light create deceptive landscapes. But let's be honest, who cares about scientific explanations when the mystery is so fascinating? Perhaps that's why the land of Sakov lives on in the popular imagination, inspiring books, films, and even modern theories about Arctic enigmas. After all, everyone loves a good story about hidden lands and mysterious disappearances. Number 4. Antillia. Moving on, we now come to the legendary Antillia, known as the Island of the Seven Cities. Located on ancient maps in the Atlantic, west of Portugal and Spain, it was one of the greatest obsessions of navigators and cartographers during the 15th century. Many believed that Antillia held secrets, riches, and even a strategic point for the great maritime routes of the time. In 1474, Paolo Toscanelli's famous map placed Antillia among the Azores, further fueling the fascination. It is said that Christopher Columbus, inspired by this map, planned a stop on the island on his route to the Indies. But even though he sailed close to the Azores, Columbus never found a trace of it. Nevertheless, its legend lived on, and the explorer even named the Antilles after the mysterious land. In 1475, the idea of Antillia was so convincing that King Afonso V of Portugal included the island of Sete Cidades in an official grant to the knight Fernão Teles. This shows how real its existence seemed. Over time, and as the Atlantic became more explored, Antillia began to disappear from the maps. Its last appearance was in 1631 on the world map of Jodocus Hondius. Today, it is remembered as one of the ocean's greatest mysteries, an island that disappeared without a trace, but which continues to fuel theories and imaginations to this day. Number 5. Bermia. Continuing our journey, we come to the enigmatic Bermia, an island that began to appear on maps in 1539, located off the coast of what is now Mexico. Small, with around 80 square kilometers and reddish soil, hence the name Bermejo in Spanish, it was frequently recorded by Spanish and European cartographers between the 16th and 17th centuries. But over time, Bermeja began to disappear. By the beginning of the 20th century, it no longer appeared in official records. And what an interesting thing. Even though it left no trace, it almost caused a diplomatic conflict. That's because in 1997, during negotiations between Mexico and the United States over an area of the Gulf of Mexico rich in oil, the supposed existence of the island could give Mexico the right to a huge slice of those reserves. As a result, the Mexican government organized expeditions in 1997 and again in 2009 to search for the island. Ships equipped with state-of-the-art technology searched the area indicated on the maps, but nothing was found. Without Bermia to back up its claim, Mexico ended up losing part of the rights to this strategic area to the United States. Of course, this gave rise to various conspiracy theories. Some people believe that the island was erased on purpose, perhaps even destroyed, to favor American interests. But the truth is that, to this day, there is no proof that Bermia really existed, or if it was just an error in the maps that, by chance, almost changed the course of history. Number 6. Sandy Island. We now move on to the intriguing case of Sandy Island, which for over 200 years has appeared on maps off the east coast of Australia in the Pacific. The first mention of the island dates back to 776, when the legendary Captain James Cook described a supposed sandy island in that region. Then, in 1876, a whaling ship recorded precise coordinates, reinforcing Sandy's existence. But not everyone was convinced. Some cartographers began to mark the island with the acronym ED, indicating its dubious existence. Even so, Sandy Island remained firmly on the maps for decades, and believe me, it even appeared on Google Maps in the first decades of the 2000 years. But in 2001, a group of enthusiasts decided to investigate and went to the coordinates indicated. What did they find? Nothing but open sea. The story got even more curious in 2012 when Captain Fred Stein and geologist Maria Seaton, during a research expedition, realized that they were about to cross an island according to the digital maps. But, like the previous explorers, they found absolutely nothing. After this confirmation, Sandy was officially removed from the digital maps and joined the list of ghost islands. What caused this mistake? Nobody knows for sure. Perhaps an error in the old records, an optical illusion, or even a myth that simply came to life. But the truth is that Sandy reminds us how even the modern world can be fooled by mysteries that defy logic. Number 7. Tam Mo Island. Sailing now through the South China Sea, we come across the mystery of Tam Mo Island. This lost territory, which once played a crucial role in the history of contact between the West and the East, has disappeared not only from maps, but also from collective memory. It is said that Tam Mo was the site of the first European settlement in China, founded by the Portuguese explorer Jorge Alvarez at the beginning of the 16th century. Today, those who take the ferry between Hong Kong and Macau cross the same seas where this Lusitanian base is said to have existed, without imagining that somewhere along the way was one of the initial marks of the European presence in Asia. The problem is that nobody knows for sure where Tam Mo was. Historians are still debating which island in the South China Sea could be the real Tam Mo. With no consensus, it was left aside and ended up disappearing from modern maps. For those who want to know more, the Macau Museum holds records about the epic of Jorge Alvarez and the island's strategic role during the Great Navigations. But Tam Mo itself remains an enigma. Yet another ghost island floating between legend and history. Number 8. Friezland Island. Back in the Irish countryside, we find Friezland, another island that has caused confusion for centuries. It was described as being south of Iceland and came to prominence thanks to the account of the Venetian Niccolò Zeno in the 16th century. But there's a curious detail. Zeno never actually set foot on the island. His descriptions were based on ancient documents, supposedly written by his explorer ancestors. Without concrete evidence or reliable reports from other travelers, Friezland seemed more like a figment of the imagination. Even so, the island insisted on appearing on European maps for over 100 years. During this time, it fueled heated debates, both in port taverns and in cartographers' offices, as navigators tried to understand whether it really existed. With the advance of expeditions across the North Atlantic, the farce could not be sustained. Friezland was erased from the maps and plunged into the mists of the unknown, leaving behind only stories and the mystery of how it managed to fool so many people for so long. Number 9. St. Brendan's Island. Bringing our journey to a close, we come to the legend of St. Brendan's Island, a story as old as it is fascinating. St. Brendan, or Saint Brendan, was an Irish monk from the 6th century who, according to reports, sailed across the Atlantic and reached the northwest coast of Africa, where he found an incredible and unknown island. The legend gained so much traction that in the village of Fenit, in County Kerry, Ireland, an imposing statue of the saint was erected, facing the ocean, as if he was still hoping to catch a glimpse of his discovery. The supposed island has aroused the curiosity of many over the centuries. Expeditions were organized to find it, but none were successful. Even so, St. Brendan's Island remained on maps until the 17th century, resisting skepticism for generations. And the doubt persists. Was the island off the coast of North Africa, near the Canaries? Or was it just a figment of an adventurous sailor's imagination and faith? Whatever the truth, the legend of St. Brendan has passed down through the ages, leaving a lasting mark among the Atlantic's greatest mysteries. So far, we've talked about islands that have appeared and disappeared in almost mysterious ways, whether due to cartographic confusion, sailors' accounts, beliefs in fantastic treasures, or natural phenomena. However, there are less romantic, and perhaps more alarming, cases of islands swallowed up by the waters as a result of predatory human actions, global warming, and rising sea levels. Next, we'll see how unbridled exploitation can cause entire territories to disappear, affecting not only the landscape, but also the lives of thousands of people. Number 10. Asan Hanakita Kojima. Among the islands that have literally disappeared is the recent case of Asan Hanakita Kojima. Located in the north of Hokkaido, Japan, this small island was once recorded at around 4.5 meters above sea level. The last time anyone saw it was in 1987, but when they tried to locate it again years later, it simply wasn't there anymore. Writer Hiroshi Shimizu, who specializes in Japanese islands, decided to investigate for a project and, intrigued by the disappearance, notified the authorities. After searching the area, it became clear that Asan Bay had been completely swallowed up by the sea, probably due to coastal erosion and rising sea levels intensified by climate change. But as you might imagine, it wasn't the only one. Number 11. Reef Islands in the Gulf of Mannar. In the Gulf of Mannar, between India and Sri Lanka, another story of disappearance draws attention. This region, a marine biosphere reserve, is known for being home to around 3,600 species of flora and fauna. It also has a rich cultural history, being one of the oldest pearl fishing centers in the world, with records of activity dating back more than 2,000 years. Despite all this importance, two reef islands, Pumarichan and Vilanguchali, have disappeared in recent decades, being completely swallowed up by the waters. Studies suggest that illegal coral mining was the main culprit. This practice destroyed the structure of the reefs, which served as natural protection against erosion, leaving the islands vulnerable to the forces of the sea. By the time the authorities realized the impact, it was too late to save the submerged islands. In 2002, stricter environmental laws were implemented to protect the rest of the archipelago, but the damage had already been done. In the image you're looking at now, the demarcated square shows exactly where these islands used to be. And today there's just sea in their place. And it goes without saying that the loss of these islands was not only an ecological impact, but also a social one, as the Gulf of Mannar is crucial to the livelihoods of thousands of fishermen and is home to unique species that depend on this ecosystem to survive. And that concludes our list of mysterious or not-so-mysterious islands that have disappeared from the maps. If these stories have surprised you as much as they have us, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, activate the bell, and stay tuned for future videos. Now we want to know, which of these stories impressed you the most? Do you believe that some of these islands really existed, or are they just a figment of the imagination? Leave your comment below and let's continue this conversation. Thank you very much for joining us on this journey through the seas and lost lands of our Bello Mundo. Until next time.